Hey guys, welcome back to the tutorial. Not exactly sure how the flow of this is actually going to go in editing, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm using a different camera setup right now so that I can give you guys kind of a first-person view of this setup. This is the second try I'm doing to film this part of the tutorial. The first time I tried it, it was a little too dark and grainy, so I don't think you could see the details. And this way, you guys will get a close-up on how to make this. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make the serrated dagger. Right, so that's what this is right here. And now this is not MC'd yet, but that's basically what we're going for. Now, this is based off of the Ryujin kind of back and tail spine spikes. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, I'm going to link OrigamiSage's tutorial in the description. He's got a really good way of doing it, and I want to give him credit for the way that I show. And also, of course, the master Satoshi Kamiya for the Ryujin design. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this flap right here, and we're going to divide it, each part, in half so that it kind of makes stairs like this, right? So as you can see, you know, it takes about a half here, and if you imagine one unit as a cube like this, that's our grid right now. So we're gonna have to fold it in half up till another half, and I'll show you guys how to do that, but that's kind of the premise. So if you guys want to go ahead and do that, you can start. And there's only going to be about 5 of these segments that's going to fit in our dagger. As you can see, there's 5 spikes, right? So that's basically how we're going to go about. And I will do my best to show you guys how to do this, but I think this dagger design is pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoy. But yeah, let's go get started. Alright guys, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our paper like this, right? And we're going to just set up the orientation of the dagger. So we're going to have both facing down like this one is. And it's going to twist this way. Right, so if you've seen some of the other shaping tutorials, you know how to do this, but you're basically just going to take the layers, make sure this one's the hand and the thicker one is the hilt, and face it down. Now, if you notice, we're going to flip it over here, that there is this flap right here, and it's kind of a secondary flap, but we're just going to open it up, and this is what we're going to use for, you know, turning it into the dagger. And we're going to have to open up these flaps a little bit, and it's going to recollapse along this 4th square right here. As you can see, there's some creases I've already made because again, this is the second time I'm filming this, but you know, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. But if you want, you can start with the 4th crease down. You're gonna fold that diagonal like this, and it's going to collapse out from there. But basically, get this part started, open it up, and I'm going to flip it around to this back side. This is very important that the orientation is correct, so just pay attention. But we're just going to open this up like this so that we can see it better, right? And basically what we're going to do is we're going to fold in between this unit, fold in half, right? So what you can do is you can just take our predefined crease right here, and you just fold that up to the line here, right? And really make this as accurate as you can because it's going to help us. And after you do that, you're going to want to unfold it, and then you're actually going to invert that crease into a mountain fold like this. And you're going to want that mountain fold to carry on past our diagonal line here, just because that's going to help the crease out when we collapse. And now, just for clarification, the collapse on the side, it's kind of arbitrary. I'm kind of going to freestyle it. It does collapse naturally, but I'm not really going to focus on that point too much. It's just going to kind of do a standard box plate collapse, but since we're divided in half, it's going to be a little bit skewed. But yeah, don't worry about that too much. You'll kind of think of them as closed sink folds, and we're just going to go from there. So now that we have that, right, we folded that mountain fold. We're going to fold that mountain fold up along this line right here. So it forms like a stair, just kind of like what I showed. And also, keep that line going past this fourth diagonal piece right here. That way we can use it for collapsing. But again, don't worry about that too much. I'm going to go into that later when we actually get to that. Now you're going to continue this along the next portion. I'll show you the next one, and we're only going to do this 5 times. So the next one, this one's already a predefined line from our grid. So mountain fold that. Don't forget to mountain fold it across. And then we're going to fold up. Now I already have a line here, but you're basically folding to the next grid line that's right here. And that'll give us that nice half portion that we want, right? And if your sides are starting to come out, just refold this mountain fold right here and it kind of stays put, right? So we have that, and again, don't worry about this part too much. If it's fighting you, just stretch it out. And let's do one more, and then I'll start showing what the collapse on the other side is going to look like. So again, we need a crease in half right here. So you can take your pre-existing grid line and fold it in half up to the next line to get ourselves that crease. And if you're unfolding this portion, just be careful. You might accidentally unfold the hand. So when you recollapse it, you don't want to forget to recollapse that. All right, so get that nice crease, and then we're going to invert that crease so it's a mountain fold, like that. And make sure that continues down, relatively far, about towards the 5th or 6th grid line right there. And again, we're going to fold that up. There's already a pre-existing grid line there, and that'll signify the half mark for us, like that. And if the others came undone like mine, just refold them. So now I'm going to show some of the collapse. So I'm just going to refold this line, right? This was already there. That's our handle. And we can actually refold this line too. Now when it comes to here, we should be able to get our third line to fold with us neatly, like that, right? Now this is where the magic happens. So this fourth line is going to be the actual collapse. So I'm gonna flip it over, and if you guys made that valley fold before, it's gonna help, or the mountain fold before, it's gonna help out. So just make sure your creases are aligned. I'm going to set it up as if I'm recollapsing the hand, right? So here's our hand, this is our hilt. So close that up, that needs to stay put. And then over here, we're going to fold in like that. And these layers are still going to be, normal, but it's right here that it starts to get different. But basically we have our valley fold in the middle right here, right? And if you think of them like closed sink folds, you just keep them pressed together and have them follow along this mountain fold right here, this line right here. Now you can see that one's a little bit sloppy, so if you want, you can fix it, which is what I'm going to do. And you just want to crease a little bit further so that it reaches across that line. And it's basically going to do like a mountain valley box plate collapse in here, right? So come here, let's kind of flatten this portion out, and it's going to force the diagonal to fold right along there. Let me see if I can show that to you guys. You see that diagonal in there? So it's kind of crumpling the paper in there, but again, that's just kind of happened. There's not really a way to avoid it, but just keep the lines together like that, and it will collapse generally like that. Now, since we don't have the rest of it done yet, it's not going to fully collapse, but that's basically what we're going for right now. Later on, it's actually going to push a little bit of a layer on the outside, but I'll show that. So let's just keep going. I'm going to flip this back around to this side. I'm going to reopen it up a little bit. This was just to kind of help us get started. And I'm going to open it up here. And this next one is a pre-existing grid fold, and you're just going to fold it in half forward like that. And that's our next division. And again, you want that to go as far as we can make it go, basically. And we just have one more, and this is the same thing again, where you're going to have to use the grid line to fold in half, just to pre-crease our fold, and make sure it's even. Right. And then we're going to take that crease we made and mount and fold along that. And then we're going to fold that up along the other grid line, and that's going to make our last pleat. So now that's, I believe that's 5. So we're going to refold these together. Here and then here. Oh, wrong one. I think I should fold in the wrong line, so I'm just refolding it here. And then now this last one might be a little bit more difficult to get straight, so if that's the case, again, just stretch out your paper. We want as nice of a line as we can possibly get, but right. Hold on, this isn't right. Okay, so I was right the first time. I creased the wrong line. But I think you guys can tell which one it is, right? It should, become stairs like that, just pleats. So fold that in, and now we're going to be able to collapse the rest of our model. So for these flaps right here, just refold them. Nothing's going to change there. And then right here is where things are going to get different. So this is that line that we first initialized. Since we already did the first 3, you should be able to get this diagonal collapsed. And that's going to help guide us. And the rest of it, you're just going to push kind of forward into what you can imagine to be more lines and into a box pleat kind of collapse, right? So you can kind of see the diagonals forming. And again, this is kind of just freestyling. So get them as lined up as you can with your fingernails. Just, do your best to lock them in, but it's not going to collapse perfectly. And then trust your flaps here. So this is the handle again. This is the hand. And now you can see I've got this extra space bulging out. That's just consequence folds from what we did. And we're actually going to turn those into 2 pleats on this side. So if you hold down the hand claps as much as possible, at this first joint, we're going to be able to kind of squeeze here and make a pleat, right? And then as we correct this side with where our hand is, it's going to squeeze out, and so you can see it's bulging like that, and it's going to let us create another pleat on the other side like that. Now you could probably fit it all into 1 pleat by doing the 2. I just like the detail a little bit better once we're done with the model. So it kind of looks like, I'll show you a little bit closer what it looks like. This is one side, right? That's from it bulging out. So like that. And then that side is all our pleats. And the collapse on the inside is just, you know, it's a little scrambled, but it fits between the lines and it can lay flat. And that's basically the goal of that collapse, is for them to lay flat, so that, you know, it looks clean, and it's technically a clean collapse. That's what we're going for. So cool. That's basically the first part of the, or I guess you could call that the collapse for the dagger. And now I'm going to show you the shaping of it. But I'm going to use the other paper as an example. Alright guys, so I'm going to show kind of general gist of the shaping, and this is all based from the Ryujin. So, you know, I'm giving it credit where credit's due. I basically grafted the Ryujin tail spines into like what I think would be a dagger. So we kind of have this setup, right? We have the accordion, you know, folds, the pleats, and again, you can reference OrigamiSage's tutorial if this part confuses you. This is a little challenging, but this is basically what we got, right? We have this kind of setup. Now, what's going to happen is this side with like the remaining paper on the end, that's going to be the edge of our dagger because it's going to turn sharp, as you can see, kind of like that. But the general gist of what I'm doing is I'm going to be taking one of these layers and I'm going to kind of open it up like that, right? And I'm going to mountain fold it down across two divisions of folds, right, like that. And when I do that, it's going to kind of recollapse the other side, like, let me show a better example. Hold on. So here, right? So I'm going to fold this down, and it's going to make a consequence crease on here that will fold in half, kind of like that. So that when it's all together, this is kind of hard to see, but it's going to kind of form something like that, right? And when this comes down, it's going to be almost flush here, or our goal is that it's flush, but it's like this. And that's kind of the pre-creasing. This is kind of what it looks like, right? And that way, when we unfold this, we are going to redo the pleat here, and we're going to collapse it. It's like kind of like a sink fold, like that. And on the inside, that other fold we did will kind of automatically come to, and it'll make this kind of interesting, you know, structure where it wraps around it nicely. And it'll form something like that. There you go, like that. And as you can see, this becomes a spike, and it gives room so that when we do the next one, right, if we collapse it like that, and I already pre-creased this one, but for example, when we collapse it, it'll make another spike like that, and it's going to keep going all the way along until this last one is collapsed. So if you need a more formidable description on how to do this, OrigamiSage has a much better tutorial than what I just showed here. But I'm just giving you guys that as kind of a background reference as we go into the next part. So if you look at this other dagger we have, as you can see, I actually did it twice. There's one down here, and then there's one on the top. And so how we're going to get that on this side is our dagger here has basically this level and that level. So we got two levels, this one, this side, and this side of the pleats. And now to get it like the other side, I'm actually going to fold this first part here in half. So I'm just going to fold it in half. You know, pretty simple. Just mount and fold it down. Make sure all the pleats stay together though. And since it's going to start reaching across the hand, we're going to carefully open up the hand a little bit and allow the other flap to continue to fold in half. Right. So I'm just folding in half like this. And it's going to fold in half over the arm, get it nice and flush. And then you can recollapse the hand as you crease this down like that. And once it's on the other side of the hand, this detail is going to fold diagonally all the way across to this detail right here. And it's going to make kind of like a little shaping texture that we'll use later, but it's kind of just hidden, if you guys can see that. And then that's in half, right? It's like that. And now we have our two spaces to make those spikes. And again, this is going to be the edge, so it's going to fold diagonally down that way. So what we want to do is we want to start here on this first one. Now this first segment here is, since it's connected to the arm and there's no kind of background space, it's going to be kind of weird. So we're not actually going to sync fold this one, we're just going to pre-crease it. So what I want you guys to do is, you know, collapse your model like this and squeeze it really tight so that you get a crease along the joint right there. And that's going to be our reference point on where to start folding. And we're going to do the top side first, and then we'll do the bottom side. Because bottom side is basically like the same thing as the top side. So I'm just going to show the top side. But basically we're going to unfold, right, just a little bit here. Just going to pull out the layer like that. Right? And that mark we made is right here. And we're going to cross, make a diagonal all the way across, about 1 unit down across by 2. And if you're using small paper like me, this is going to be a little bit difficult. So if you want to use like tweezers or something, you can. I'm not going to use tweezers just because I don't have any on me, and I can do it on my own. Kind of. But if you want, you can use it. As you practice this, you'll kind of get a feel for how it's supposed to be. So as you can see, I just used my fingernail a bit to push it in the right direction, and it's already starting to do the collapse. Basically, this part is going to fold inside like that, and the other side is just mountain folded down like that. And then we're just going to realign our pleats and re-squish it. And as you can see, we got that down. So that's going to help our first spike to be a little bit more, you know, pronounced. Now it might not have folded perfectly, so you can see there's a little bit of a blemish here, but you're not going to be able to see that once we finish shaping. So now we're going to do the same thing on the next side, right? So we're going to pull it out very carefully. You can unfold this part a little bit on the bottom. Unfold it like that, right? And then normally I just crease up until there so I don't lose the spot. And then we're going to fold the diagonal down, right? About 1 unit across 2. And you really want to make the points sharp, so if anything, fold the points. Right. And so once I have that part mountain folded down across like that, it's going to help that inner part to collapse in inside the other layer like that for our pre-crease. Kind of like this. Now when you're doing this process, it might have untucked the folds in the back, but if you crease it strong enough, they'll stay. So don't worry about that too much. You can always recrease it later, but I'll show you what I got. So now it's creased in like that, right? So now we're going to open it back up again, and we're going to invert that fold right there, and we're going to sync fold it. And again, if you want to see a better example of this, go to OrigamiSage's tutorial to check it out. So I'm just inverting that crease like that, right? And once I have that crease inverted, if I try to just recollapse the pleat, it's going to pretty much automatically give me that inner portion, as long as I keep the rest of it intact like that. And as you can see, it's already giving me that inner portion like that, like that. So I squeeze the point here, and I just refold the pleat, squish it together, and I got myself a spike. You guys see that? Right there. So you're going to keep doing that along the rest of these. I'm going to show another one, and then I'm going to time lapse the rest on this side just so to save some time. Right. So this one I'm going to do a little bit faster. And then I'll show you guys one on this side. The bottom part's pretty much the same thing. So if you want to skip ahead and do that, if you know how to do it, go ahead. It's just a little bit harder because there's less to grab. But we're up here. I pulled it a little bit. And then I'm just going to make that crease from the point down. And when I get that fold started, it's going to start going inside the layer here. That's what we want. Right, and that's our pre-crease. So now when I crease it a little bit and unfold it, now I'm going to open it up on the bottom a little bit, invert that crease over here on this side, and then recollapse the pleat with the sync fold. So you guys can kind of see that diamond that's forming. That's kind of the shape. And when we do that, we get another point, and we get the pleats collapsed again. Right? So now we got another set of spikes. This one's a little harder to see. And now this one doesn't look as sharp as the other one, so you can go back and just crease it a little bit more, and it'll turn out a little bit better. Right, get it more aligned. Like that. And then we got our 2 spikes. So you're going to continue that 3 more times across here. This one's just going to be really easy. You're just basically folding down. There's nothing to open up or unfold. So I'll show that after I fold it, just for reference before I get into the bottom section. But go ahead and do that. I'm going to time lapse this section to save some time. Cool. Alright guys, so I actually stopped folding up till this last one because I just wanted to show you guys how it's going to happen. And actually, the way we're going to shape this, we're going to just fold this to the 45, just like as if we were making like fingers or claws. So this one's not actually going to be a kind of like the others. It's just going to be you know, normal kind of reverse fold. Now these points are going to be the edges of our dagger, so you want them to be pretty sharp. So I'm just lining it up with the point on the other side over here, and then just flush with the line right here. And we might have to change those later depending on how sharp the rest of it is, but if you guys didn't see that, it's basically just a reverse fold, flush with the other side like that. Right, that way we can have a point on the end here. And we just want to make sure this one's clean. So just line it up here, get that point sharp, and you're good to go on that last part. So, you know, don't worry about that one as much. And yeah, so now we did the whole top row. Right, you can kind of see those forming. And as you can see, it's kind of stretching, curving downwards like that. That's okay, because our dagger is going to kind of be curved. I'll show you an example with this one. You can see the blade is kind of curved out like that. So, you know, if it's a little curved back, that's kind of how a dagger is. So we're just going to do that. Now we're going to do the bottom part, and I'm just going to show, actually, so this is going to start exactly like the top is, but it might be a little bit more difficult because there's less paper to keep intact. But we're going to start that first part just like the same here, where we just pre-creased it but didn't collapse. We didn't do the sink fold. So on this first layer, I'm going to open it up a little bit like that, right? And our line is right there, so I'm just going to hit that with a mountain fold down, and it's right here. Get that valley fold in between and here, right? And then just refold on this side like that, the pleats, and we got something like that. Now you can see this part sticking out a little bit, so just kind of shove it in there a little bit. You can fix it a little bit later in shaping. It's not going to affect the design too much because we're going to be folding this a little bit differently anyways. But just get that started so that our first spike will have some groove to it. Now we're going to start the next one. I'll show one of these. But the one advantage you have of doing it on here is when you spread this part apart, you can actually get a whole grip on this pleat right here. So that mountain fold is the pleat. And our pleats are going to want to, you know, fold diagonally, so you can actually just straight up initiate that kind of fold. Maybe not on this one, but on the later ones you can, or it'll be a little bit easier too. But same practice. Hit that mountain fold down like that, and it's going to help crease into our pleat like that. And naturally there's going to be a little bit sticking out just because of how the dimensions are of this kind of structure. So again, don't worry if that's happening a little bit too much. We're just going to squish it in later. So that's our pre-crease. I'll let you guys look at that for a little bit. And when we collapse it, we're going to hit that with a sink fold. And just be really gentle. We're going to reverse the crease just like before, and then we're going to kind of refold the pleat here, and we get our spike right there. You guys see that? And then you see this overhang bit over there, and we're just going to open up the pleat and kind of shove it in to the pleat so that it lines up. Recollapse. Now it's hidden. and you can even out that edge right there a little bit. Just, you know, this is gonna take a lot of patience, a little bit of trial and error, but you guys can do it. It takes a little bit of practice. After the first couple, you'll get the hang of it. So you're gonna do that for the rest here, and this side, I'll stop the time lapse again when I get here, and I'll show you what to do. But go ahead and do that. I'm gonna time lapse the rest of this portion. Oops, I hit the camera there. But I'm gonna time lapse the rest of this portion, and you guys are gonna see it when it's all done. Alright guys, we are at this point where we got the top part. Oh, that's wrong. Wrong dagger. Here we are. And we got all of them up till the last one collapsed. So we got a nice array of spikes right there. I think we're doing pretty good. And this last one I just wanted to show in case you guys were confused. But basically just fold it down to the point. Now it might not reach the other point if the layers are starting to skew, but when you do the sync fold, you're going to go from point to point so that we can have a nice sharp edge. It's not focusing. I'll show you guys after I crease this really quick. But I think you guys will get the gist of what I'm doing. Right? So it's kind of like that. Right? And you have that little edge sticking out. And we're just going to, this is like a typical, if you ever made claws before, typical reverse folds to thin out the layer. Basically what we're doing here. Get a nice sharp point. And that's all we need. It's like this. Right? So it's a little wrinkled here. Straighten it out. And that's going to be our point at the end. So you can kind of see that. Cool. So that's that. That's basically the full collapse for the dagger. So great job if you guys made it this far. But this is what we're going to do. So this is our hand, right? So we're going to retwist it this way so it's the correct orientation. Like that. Right? And now I haven't shaped the hand yet, but if you want to shape the hand before you do this next step, I'd advise that. It'll be a little easier to get the hand done. But we're going to flip it around to this part and see how this layer just kind of isn't anything. These two layers, they're kind of blocking the serrations from the other side. So we're going to take those two layers, right, this layer and that layer, they're connected, the collapsed layers, and we're going to fold those in half like this. Be very careful. If you're using a thicker paper, it's going to be a little bit hard. So if you want to take some MC to this, go for it. But very carefully fold it in half. Really try not to let the layers spread out. Right. And whatever pleat design we had in the back, depending on how neat you were, it's going to be added here. So you guys see this is pretty nice except for these two right here. But that's okay. It doesn't matter too much. Fold in half like that so that the spikes can show basically like this, and realign it with your hilt here, and the rest of it's going to just fold in half. Now it's going to fold inwards towards this part, so it might feel a little awkward, but really squish it down in there. The paper should obey if you squish it hard enough. Like that, right? I'll show you what the other side looks like in a little bit. So other side looks like this. So you really can't tell what happens on this layer, but if it's sticking out, just shove it in and fold. So that's kind of what we've got. Right. And again, we want that nice sharp edge, so make sure you have that. There you go. And then now just very standard on the top side is our hilt. So, just fold that in half accordingly, just like the rest of the things we've made. So I'm just going to fold that inwards. Let's go this way. Just fold it that way. Like that. And then once we methyl cellulose it, it'll turn out to be a little bit nicer. But just fold it in half, get these in. I'm gonna worry about that in shaping. If you want to angle it a little bit, you can, just to get a little bit of edge, because it's kind of like a curved knife. But fold that down, and when you do your final shaping touches, just get that handle really sharp, like that. But that's the gist of our dagger. As you can see, it's kind of like that. If there's any other points you want to smooth out, you can. If you want to crimp these in to get them a little bit sharper, you can. But this is kind of the details we've got going. Right. Clean everything up, methyl cellulose it, looks pretty nice. And then our hand is just going to, once it's done, it's just wrapping around the handle like this. And we got basically the arm down here. And so this model has two daggers facing backwards. I like them facing backwards. I think it looks aggressive. I'll pose them, give them a cool pose, make it look like they're charging for a target or something like that. But that's what these look like. It's kind of cool texture, just to find, shapes. This one I stretched the layers out a little bit longer to make the spikes kind of stand out on the back. This one is a little bit more cleaner, but the spikes are a little bit more compressed. So you can kind of edit to your style of shaping as well. And since this is basically the final weapons tutorial, again, I did a combination. You could do serrated dagger and like a sword, right? You could have the two serrated daggers. You could have the samurai sword with it. This is just, I just shaped this sword a little bit differently. I just basically just squash folded and opened the samurai sword, but mixed it up. If you saw the previous armor tutorial, I also did the spiked armor on this side. So yeah, you can just play around with whatever feel you think looks best with the dagger, or however you want to design it. But that's pretty much it. I'm not going to show the methyl cellulose version because I think you guys know how to do that by now. But if all else fails, when you methyl cellulose it, squish these layers together so they're thin, and really wrap up the handle and shape the hand so it looks great. But that's all I have for you guys for this tutorial, basically on how to make this design. So don't forget, this is based off of the Ryujin. It's basically a graft of the Ryujin spikes into the layer I had the sword originally in. And I give credit to OrigamiSage for the tutorial on how to do this. So go check that out. Go check Satoshi Kamiya's website out. I'll link that below too. And yeah, have fun with this. Explore shaping. Be as creative as you want to be. You can take this design, put it elsewhere. The way I thought of this design was, I just literally thought, how can I graft some spikes into a blade? And I came up with this. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. After this, I'm going to show some shaping of it all done so you guys can see what it kind of looks like in post. But if you made it this far, great job, guys. This is pretty complex. And thanks for watching. And I wish you guys the best of luck folding this. And feel free to send me some photos, especially of this, if you guys are able to make it. That'd be great. But yeah, cool. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.
so dangerous, so dangerous. Rise high when I'm falling, keep marching on melody. I'm the warrior that will never change. I'll be fighting for another day. All this origami, all this origami, all this origami got me going kamikaze. Now I'm